It is one of the stranger facts about human beings that we can be intelligent in many areas of life, and yet strangely helpless in love. We may know how to work, plan, advise others, survive difficulties, and appear perfectly reasonable in public. And then one person takes too long to reply. One person becomes distant. One person gives us warmth on Monday and silence by Wednesday. And suddenly, we are no longer calm adults. We are investigators. We are poets of punctuation. We are awake at midnight trying to understand what a short message really meant. From the outside, it can look absurd. Why chase someone who gives us so little peace? Why become so attached to a person who is not clearly choosing us? Why not simply walk towards someone kind, available, and pleased to be loved? The answer is not that we are foolish. It is that, somewhere in our emotional history, love became confused with struggle. Many of us did not first meet love as something calm, steady, and reliable. We met it as something mixed. Perhaps tenderness was there, but so was criticism. Perhaps affection arrived, but unpredictably. Perhaps one parent was loving one day and frightening the next. Perhaps attention had to be earned by being impressive, quiet, useful, charming, or undemanding. So the child learned a lesson no one ever said aloud. Love is not simply given. Love must be won. Love can disappear. Love belongs to the person whose approval we cannot quite secure. Years later, when we meet someone who recreates this emotional atmosphere, our nervous system may not say, "This is dangerous." It may say, with tragic excitement, "This is home." This is why unavailable people can feel so compelling, not because they are always special, not because they are necessarily deep, not because fate has placed a sacred obstacle between us and happiness, but because their distance awakens an old hope. This time, perhaps, we will win. This time, the cold person will soften. This time, the distracted person will look up. This time, the one who cannot love properly will learn to love because of us. This time, the story will end differently. A great deal of romantic obsession is not really about the present. It is an attempt to repair the past using a new person who happens to carry the same wound. We are not only chasing them, we are chasing a childhood. We are chasing a parent. We are chasing the moment when someone who once made us feel small, uncertain, or unwanted finally turns around and says, "You were always enough. I am sorry I made you doubt it. I see you now." Of course, the person we are chasing may have no idea they have been given such a large symbolic role. They may simply be someone who is afraid of closeness, someone who enjoys being desired but not truly known, someone who likes the beginning of intimacy but panics when another person starts to need them. But to us, they become more than themselves. They become the gatekeeper of our worth. Their message feels like oxygen. Their silence feels like a verdict. Their interest briefly rescues us from an old humiliation. Their indifference returns us to it. This is why the chase becomes addictive. If someone is always cold, we may eventually give up. If someone is always warm, we may slowly relax. But if someone is warm, then distant, then tender, then unreachable, they create in us a state of painful alertness. We begin to live for the next sign, the next proof, the next small return of tenderness. We call it passion, but sometimes it is panic with better lighting. Sometimes what we call chemistry is the body recognizing a pattern it once had to survive. This does not mean every intense feeling is unhealthy, but we should be cautious around any love that makes us feel most alive when we are least at peace. We should be careful around the person who turns us into detectives, the person whose affection must be decoded, the person who makes us feel that, in order to be loved, we must become more beautiful, less needy, more impressive, less honest, less ourselves. Real love may contain uncertainty, especially at the beginning, but it should not require the steady humiliation of our dignity. It should not ask us to live on crumbs and call them a feast. One of the reasons we chase love is that we have not yet learned how to receive it. This sounds strange, because we think love is what everyone naturally wants. But to someone raised on uncertainty, steady love can feel suspicious. It can feel dull. It can feel almost offensive. Why are they so available? Why are they so kind? Why do they like us so much? Have they not noticed what is wrong with us? The unavailable person protects us from a deeper terror. Because they never fully arrive, we never have to be fully seen. Because they keep us chasing, we never have to sit quietly in the room of real intimacy and discover what happens when another person truly knows us. The chase keeps us busy. It gives us a project. It distracts us from the frightening task of being loved by someone who is actually present. The way out begins with a difficult recognition. The intensity of our longing is not always evidence of the depth of our love. Sometimes it is evidence of the depth of our deprivation. We may not want this person because they are right for us. We may want them because they awaken a very old hunger. A hunger to be chosen, a hunger to be preferred, a hunger to be the exception, a hunger to make an unavailable person available, and thereby prove that we are not someone who can be left. This recognition hurts because it removes some glamour from our suffering. It asks us to see that what felt like destiny may have been repetition. But it is also merciful, because if our chasing has a history, then it is not a life sentence. We can begin to ask different questions. Not only do they love me, but why am I so drawn to someone who makes me doubt that I can be loved? Not only will they come back, but what part of me is waiting so faithfully for someone who has shown so little capacity to stay? Not only how can I become more desirable, but what would happen if I stopped treating their desire as the measure of my worth? These questions do not instantly free us. The heart is rarely re-educated by one good argument. We may understand everything and still check our phone. We may see the pattern and still hope. This is not stupidity. It is the slowness of healing. The mind learns first. The nervous system follows later, with many backward glances. So we should not meet our chasing selves with contempt. We should not say, "How pathetic." We should say something more accurate and more tender. Of course I became attached to this. Of course I mistook uncertainty for love. Of course I wanted to win over someone distant. There were reasons. There is almost always a child inside romantic obsession. A child waiting at the window, a child trying to be good, a child monitoring the mood in the house, a child wondering what they did wrong, a child who concluded that love must be earned by becoming perfect, silent, useful, beautiful, entertaining, or undemanding. When we chase love as adults, this child has often taken charge. They are not foolish. They are simply young. They do not yet know that someone's inability to cherish us is not proof that we are uncherishable. They do not yet know that peace can feel boring at first only because chaos was once so familiar. The task is not to kill the longing. It is to educate it, to teach it slowly, to want better things, to help it understand that consistency is not a lack of passion, that kindness is not weakness, that being chosen by someone unavailable is not a greater prize than being loved by someone sane. There may come a time when the old chase begins to lose its glamour. The silence that once felt mysterious begins to feel merely tiring. The mixed signals that once seemed deep begin to seem immature. The person who once appeared fascinating because they were hard to reach begins to look, more simply, unable to love. And then, perhaps without drama, we put down the chase. Not because we have become cold, but because we have become more loyal to ourselves. We stop calling anxiety romance. We stop auditioning for people who are not ready. We stop running after those who reproduce our oldest sadness. And eventually, we may discover a different kind of love. One that does not turn us into detectives, beggars, or performers. One that does not require us to become smaller or more impressive. One that does not need to be chased because it is walking, calmly and willingly, beside us. It may feel unfamiliar at first, almost too quiet, but slowly we may come to recognize the dignity of a love that stays, a love that answers, a love that listens, a love that says, without spectacle or cruelty, "You do not have to chase me. I am here." And this, for those of us who have spent our lives pursuing love in the distance, may be the most difficult lesson of all. that real love is not always the person disappearing over the horizon. Sometimes it is the one standing close by, steady and unglamorous, waiting for us to become healthy enough to stop running.